Hello and welcome to the GitLab lecture, Open Source Contributions. I'm Sean Carroll. I'm an engineering manager at GitLab in the source code group. And today we're going to talk about open source software, or as it's more commonly known, FOSS. So we're going to talk about what is FOSS, what are the various FOSS license models, which companies use FOSS and contribute back to it. Why should I contribute to open source? Why should you contribute to open source? And how to contribute to open source at GitLab. So what is FOSS? FOSS is free and open source software. It's software that is both free and open source software where anyone is freely licensed to use, copy, modify, and work with the software in any way. You have access to the source code, you can change it, and you're encouraged to voluntarily improve the design of the software. FOSS license models. There are many different software licenses available in FOSS, and they actually represent different points of view or philosophies even. In general, there are two broad categories, Copyleft and Permissive. Something to note that even if the software is given away for free, it is still covered by a license. It is still essentially owned by somebody. It's important to understand what license you are working with and what are the rules, particularly if you're planning to take that into some type of business environment. It's also very common practice to put the license into a file called license in all caps in the root of the project, although the license may be also stored somewhere else. Copyleft licenses. So this is a bit of a joke or a play on words on the word copyright. Copyleft takes the philosophy that software should be free and that you should not pay for it. So it actually takes such a strong approach that any software that is derived from the software that you have taken from a FOSS project, it must be also turned into copyleft software. So it's kind of like a sticky license. Any modified version of the code, as well as products derived from it, must also be released under a compatible copyleft license. What does that mean? Sometimes it's actually not super clear on what is a derived product. So you need to be quite careful if you're planning to use copyleft software inside of some type of commercial project. You must add a copyleft license to the code you build on top of the original. There are no restrictions on selling services built on copyleft code. And in fact, this is a very common business model. So under this type of model, a company will take one or more pieces of software that has been developed by a copyleft project and sell it. Not sell the software itself, but sell the services and sell support perhaps for the software. And this has been a very successful business model for many companies. Some examples of copyleft licenses are, the most common one is GPL and its derivatives like Affero GPL. Mozilla, who make the Firefox browser, also have a well-known license called the Mozilla Public License. And then for things that are not actually software, so for example, photographs or Wikipedia pages, they might be covered by something called the Creative Commons Share-alike license. It works in the same way. Anything that's derived from that product must also be shareable for anyone else to use. So if that doesn't suit you, the permissive licenses may be more user-friendly for a business. Permissive licenses allow the user to use the FOSS code for free and really do anything with it. You can modify it, you can redistribute it, you can sell the software, you can fork the software and make a different product from that original software, and you can essentially do what you want with it. So this is sometimes called the anything goes license. Usually the main requirement is that the original author is acknowledged and that the original license file is kept in whatever the software turns into in the future. Many commercial products are built on such licenses. Many of the products inside your phone or your laptop or on the internet have come through these type of licenses. The most well-known one is MIT. Other very common ones are BSD and Apache. And there's also a CC BY, which is a similar version to the one that we just talked about on the previous slide. This is designed for non-code type of entities, so photographs, documents, etc. Open core. Okay, so GitLab uses a combination of both open and closed licenses. This approach is called open core, and I'll just emphasize it's not a license, it's an approach. So GitLab essentially have two products. There's GitLab CE, which is the community edition, and this is fully open source. And then on top of CE is built GitLab EE, or Enterprise Edition, which is closed source. So this is also becoming a more common model for companies, and it's a way where companies can still engage with the open source community. You can use the GitLab CE product, and many projects use it completely for free, and it is, quite a powerful product. It's most of the GitLab product. And then for those enterprise customers who want special features, they can buy the Enterprise Edition, which is paid. Users can see the issue tracker, and they can contribute to either stream of code. So let's just talk about that, because if you're an open source contributor, of course, it makes sense to contribute to the open source platform. If you're contributing to a closed source product, why would you do that? Well, in fact, GitLab has many customers who do that, and they'll have teams of people who are working, who have access to the code, of course, and then they will submit an improvement to the product or some feature that they would like. And once that is accepted by GitLab, that becomes part of the product. It's maintained by GitLab. And so that company gets a feature that they want, which is then maintained, going forward. GitLab is very serious about the open core model, and it has a statement that the FOSS features will never become paid. So features that have already been released free will never be turned into a premium product. They might be built upon and improved, in which case there might be a premium version, but the original features will stay the same. And there's a whole page about that, which is linked here, the stewardship page, where you can read more about the philosophy behind that. Okay, so which companies use and contribute to FOSS? Open source has really been fully accepted into the corporate world. There's a statistic here, 9 out of 10 companies use FOSS software. You could probably even argue it's 10 out of 10. It's really prevalent. As I mentioned earlier, it's in all of our phones. It's in many of the pieces of software in our televisions, in our laptops. Even, it's really everywhere in our cars. So some companies actively make part or some of their product available under the open source licenses, such as what GitLab has done. Other companies do the same thing. Other companies might contribute to FOSS projects and might actually enhance some FOSS projects. And there is actually calls for more of this to happen, because so many corporate companies are now using FOSS products, but they're not necessarily giving as much back as could be possible. So there are some changes happening in that area. And the thing about open source software, it was originally thought to be insecure and unreliable. And it took a long time for it to be accepted into the corporate world. It's now actually the reverse. It's now considered to be more secure because it has so many people looking at it. And it's not just the relying on one company for the durability of that piece of software. It's because basically anyone can look at it and review for themselves if they think it's a good piece of software and if it's secure. So why would I contribute to open source? Why should you contribute to open source? There's a number of reasons, especially if you're a student. Now, one of them is to build your programming skills in a real world environment. So as you know, you may attend lectures, you may read books, and you may have some type of projects that you will do as part of your course. But to actually get real world experience, generally you need to have a job. An alternative path is to contribute to open source software projects. And there are many ways you can do that. You can work on something quite small, or you can, as you build up to it, you can actually contribute major features. Another way is it's an innovative way to expand your network. Also very helpful when you might be looking for a career, for a job. You'll possibly come across people that you would not normally have any connection with because they could be on the other side of the world or in some different company or something. So the next point I think actually is quite important. If you make a relatively significant open source contribution, I would add that to your CV as an achievement. Just because it's open source doesn't mean it's low quality. In fact, it's often the reverse. To get something accepted by a serious open source project is really some work, and it is an achievement. And I would definitely put that on your CV. Another reason is because you're using this software, and it has, thousands of hours have gone into the development of this software. You're using it for free, or maybe you might want to give some time back and actually also contribute back to the software. Part of that is maybe you want to build something that is literally used by millions of people. So for example, if you worked on some web server software, it's literally used by hundreds of millions of people. And finally, you might decide in the future that you would like to build some type of business around open source software. And so understanding and contributing to open source is a great way to get started in that area. How do you contribute to open source software at GitLab? GitLab has really great resources to get started with contributing. We have great documentation. There are hackathons which happen fairly regularly, and there's a lot of support during those hackathons. We have a Gitter channel. So Gitter is a instant messenger channel where you can ask for support. And then within the issue tracker itself, we have two labels. The first one is good for first contributors. So this is something that is considered to be relatively simple and would be a great way to get started. Sometimes it's something as small as a documentation change. And so that's, it's worth looking for those labels. And the other one that will always be accompanied with good for first contributors is accepting merge requests. So once an issue has been validated by the GitLab team, and it's basically well described and it's ready to be worked on, GitLab will often add this label called accepting merge requests, which means that anyone can just go and grab that and write a merge request and submit it. And then you'll be helped by the GitLab team to get that merge request merged, and you'll essentially add to the product. So the main landing page for open source contributions is this contribute page. So it's quite a long page. I've just taken a screenshot here, but it's really, if you go there, it's got all the links to all the materials. And I think the most important thing to think about when contributing to any open source project is that you're donating your time and you're getting something in return, which is in many cases learning and a great experience. Thank you very much. I hope this was a useful lecture, and I encourage you to go ahead and start contributing to open source projects. Thank you.